Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, Naaseh V'Natzliach. I want to welcome you to another session of our Parashat Shavua class here at Chabad in Aventura. Before we get started with tonight's class, very interesting title, saying the right thing at the right time to the right person. The art of the rebuke. It's a very interesting class and a huge life lesson that we're going to try to extract from this week's parasha. Before we get started with this week's class, I'd like to give some honorable mentions and dedications to the following people. This class will be in honor of Jacqueline Bat Alia and Tova Shindel Bat Alta. Also, this class will be to the Ilui Nishmat of Avi Mori David Ben Zohara, that today is his yortzeit, as well as my cousin Yaniv Ben Rina, that today is his yortzeit. And also Michelle Ben Zohara, Avi Ben Vivi, Tiesh Matan Tzua B'Tzua Chaim, אברהם יהושע בן סולטנה, סימון בן עליה, מזל בת לונה, מאיר בן רבקה, סולטנה בת פרחה, יצחק בן סביה, רחל בת בלה, יעקב בן תמר, סוזן בת שבה, יהודה בן אהרון, ברנדל בת מאיר דוב, שלום בן זוהרה, חנה בת חווה, קרנצ'י בת ברנדל, ציון בן דינה, רחל בת אליס. Also, that this class should be to the refuah shelema of Amram ben Zohara, Daniel bat Mazal, Yaakov ben Dina, Gavriel ben Mashiach, Keren Chava bat Dona, Nir ben Yehudit, Chaya Yael Shoshana bat Chana Fredo, Lea Said bat Yael, Heleni Orna bat Chen Chana. Also, that this class would be for the Herayon and Leda Kala, Herayon Mutzach v'Leda Kala of Einav bat Larissa, Vesara Miriam bat Heina Rivka. And Zivug Hagul Mishorish Nishmatam to Inbal bat Jacqueline, bat Chen bat Jacqueline, Guy ben Dina, Shena Henshi bat Leah Gittel, Eli ben Shula, Yehudit bat Sarai Menu, Tamar Adina bat Devorah Miro, Yosef ben Sarah, Rachel Shaked bat Revital, Shir bat Revital, and bracha v'hatzlacha to Avraham, and Ilui Nishmat to Shaul Yosef ben Garaz, and a general bracha v'hatzlacha to Avraham ben Daniel, Yosef ben Daniel, Avraham ben Violet Chaya, Yehuda Lev ben Tova Shindel, Guy Shelomo ben Shimon, Desiree and Avia, and a big bracha v'hatzlacha to Shakira and the entire family. Be'ezrat Hashem Yeshot b'mhera. Also Gael Teppenberg and family, Joseph Dornbush and family, Judah Mendel and Esther Freda, Dov Shmuel and Pesi Penina and family, and Shalom ben Chaya Carmela. And also we have some additional sponsors tonight. Judah Mendel sponsoring for the second time. He's sponsoring tonight's class to Ilui Nishmat of all the Jewish neshamot, including Shaul Yosef ben Garaz. How nice is it? Judah's the best. Okay. Also, our good friend Naomi Perez Schiffman, she'll probably be here a little bit later, but she's sponsoring tonight's class to the schut of her children, Yoshua Amir ben Naomi, Jocelyn Rivka, Alex Chana, and Stephanie Leah bat Naomi. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless them and give them strength and clarity to always go in His ways. And for Rosh Hashanah to Sarah Leah bat Sarah and her son Michael, and for Rosh Hashanah for Angela bat Estela, and for Shalom Bayit Tzachah for Ginny Adasa bat Sarah Leah, and for the protection of the IDF soldiers in Am Yisrael, and also our good friend of the class. He's been learning with us for many years, even though he's not here. His presence is here. Aaron Silberman, sponsoring tonight's class for Parashat Shavua class to continue in his honor. Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll start tonight's class also in dedication to Am Yisrael, for the soldiers that are fighting, for the hostages that need to be freed, for the wounded that need the healing. Hashem, give us a big Yeshua b'mhera, as the situation is tense right now in the land of Israel. Also, before we get started, let's make the intention that we are about to learn Torah Leshem Shamayim veBesimcha. And we're learning it for the sake of heaven, and we're glad to do it. It also activates a tremendous amount of happiness in the heavens when we start learning with that intention. Okay, Sefer Devarim, the fifth and final book from the Chumash. It's also known as Mishneh Torah. It's as if we just finished the entire Torah, 4 books of the entire Torah. The 5th book is Moshe's review of the entire Torah. Ivrei Noam, a bulk of our learning is going to come from Rav Yoram Michael Abedjeh, Zechet Tzadik Livracha, his book. He has a beautiful mahalach over here in regards to this week's parasha. It begins to tell us that Chumash Devarim. Do you mind giving me a Chumash over there? Says that these were the last words of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was given the instruction that after he finishes the war with the Midyanim, that's going to be his last days. So he began to put together this entire book that we're going to be learning, Sefer Devarim. He started to put it together, and the way that he did it is he started Mirosh Chodesh Shvat, on the first day of Shvat, and 36 days later, 36 days later, he passed away. Does anybody know the day that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away? Zayin Adar. So if you take 36 days back from Zayin Adar, is Rosh Chodesh Shvat. So it's good to know when he started to write and how long it took him. It's actually hinted in the first Pesukim in this week's parasha, as it says, Ele hadevarim asher diber Moshe. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh says the word Ele is Aleph, Lamed, and Hey. If you take the numerical value of the word Ele, Aleph is 1, Lamed is 30, Hey is 5, altogether is 36. 36 days, the time that it took him to write, Ele hadevarim. 36 days that it took him to write the entire book of Devarim. Before we get started on tonight's class, I actually wanted to speak a little bit more about the loftiness of Sefer Devarim. Sometimes people don't know the greatness of the books that we are reading, as well as the powers that they possess. It is said about Sefer Devarim, Rabbi Bunim says, when somebody has the desire to do a proper teshuvah process and he wants to come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shilmad kol hashana Sefer Mishneh Torah. The entire year he should learn Sefer Devarim. It's very interesting. For those of you that are connected to Rabbi Pinto or Shuva Israel, they're famously known. The rabbi really promotes the whole reading of Sefer Devarim on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. Even there are some that read the entire book of Devarim every Shabbat. Now, what does that do for a person when he starts to read the Sefer Devarim throughout the year? It activates the teshuvah process in him for the entire year. Ezra Sofer, he's the one that actually took the Sefer Torah and he divided it into parashiot. And he's the one that instituted when we read, which one, when do we read 2 parashiot, when do we read 1, when is the first aliyah, second aliyah, third aliyah. Ezra Sofer is the one that authored all the breaks and the stops of the parashiot and the aliyot that we have in the Torah. And so he says, Ezra Sofer tiken liftoach hakriyat b'Sefer Devarim lifnei Tisha B'Av. He instituted it that the reading of Parashat Devarim or the reading of Sefer Devarim will always happen the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av. It's by design. Why? Because reading Sefer Devarim, it's an auspicious for the rectification the person wants to go through the teshuvah process. And when a person does teshuvah, it also hastens the geula, hastens the redemption. So in the time of Av, the time of Tisha B'Av, when we're dealing with the fact that we're lamenting the loss of Bet HaMikdash that Yerushalayim is not built out, that we're still in exile, and it's all because of our actions, and we still haven't repented properly to bring us back to the reality of the third Beit HaMikdash being built out, with Melech HaMashiach ruling over us, and living in the Messianic era. So since we don't have that, then what do we need? We need to do a better teshuvah process. We need to come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What helps us? Sefer Devarim. And that's why it's instituted, Isaiah Sofer made it, the Sefer Devarim is read right before, the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av. Continues to say, the Rebbe Mibel's, Rabbi Moshe Misarwon, Zchuto Yagenu Aleinu Amen, he says, Halimud b'Sefer Devarim hu segula leolid zera shel kaima. He says, anybody who reads Sefer Devarim, it's good to have children. Zara de kaima, meaning that you're going to be successful at bearing children. Now, why would that be? Why would that be? It's very interesting because they say that the soul of Mashiach is also going to be born on Tisha B'Av. And also we know that Mashiach is not coming till all the neshamot from the goof are depleted. In other words, you have to imagine, if you're a Jew, you have to imagine that you're part of one big body, right? And this body has all these little neshamot inside of it. And once all these neshamot come out of the body, the last neshama comes out, that's when Mashiach is coming. So in order, when we pray for the time of Beit HaMikdash to be rebuilt and for Mashiach to come, in order for that to happen, something else needs to happen. All the neshamot, all the Jewish neshamot have to come into this world. So there's a segulas for Zara de Kaima for all the neshamot to come into this world during this time. As it says, ספר דברים מסוגלת לבנים, מקרבת את הגאולה התלויה בהוצאת הנשמות מאוצר הנשמות. Says that the reading of the learning or the reading of Sefer Devarim, not only is it auspicious to having children, not only does it hasten the redemption, because it's all hinged on all the souls coming from the treasure, from this goof of neshamot that all have to come into the world before Mashiach comes. So this is the Sefer Devarim brings that forward. The Zohar HaKadosh says that Avraham Avinu was only able to give birth to or have the child Yitzhak in the merit that his name had an upgrade. He went from Avram to Avraham. He had the hey that got added to his name. And we know that, I don't know if we can even begin to understand what we're saying, but we'll just say it because we've learned it before, is that this world got created with the letter Hey, and the upper worlds got created with the letter Yud. What does it mean? I don't know. Ask your local Kabbalist. But nevertheless, the letter Hey is something that has to do with this world, and the letter Yud is connected to the upper worlds. So, Avraham Avinu, he got an add-on from Avram to Avraham. But this hay that this world was built on also corresponds to the 5 books of Moses. The hay which has a numerical value of 5 is keneged chamisha chumshe Torah. And how do we know that? Because if you look at the construction of the letter hay, how does it look? It looks like a dalet, right? That's the 4 books that we just learned, and the small yud in that or small line beneath the dalet, that's Sefer Devarim. That's how the Chamisha Chumshe Torah. We have the 4 that are together and the one that is separate with Mishneh Torah. Sefer Devarim הוא ספר חמישי שמשלים את האות ה' שהיא מסוגלת להוליד, כמו שכתוב, ה' לכם זרע. We see that that the letter Hey, we spoke about this in previous classes, that it's good that when you have children, especially girls, that their names have a Hey in it. Why? Because Hey is a segula for zivug and pirya verivya. Meaning when a woman has the letter Hey in her name, it's easier for her to find the zivug, it's easier for her to have children. Where do we get that from? From Yosef. When Yosef was gathering all the wheat, and they were trying to ask him, what's your secret? all the storage houses for the grain, all the silos, all the food is rotting away for everybody else, and for you, you're able to keep it, you're able to maintain it, and you're able to store it, and you're the only one who's able to have this grain and to sell it later on. What's your secret? So it says that the pasuk over there, He lachem zara. He showed him how to do it, right? But in other words, when we say He, have you ever heard of a word He? He? What's He in Hebrew? There's no such word, right? And it's written actually Hey Aleph. So what's Hey Lachem Zara? That the letter Hey, meaning out of the Drash we learned that the letter Hey, Lachem Zara. When you have a letter Hey in the name, when you have a letter name in your name, you're going to have Zera, you're going to have children. So we see that Avraham Avinu in the merit of the Hey that corresponds to the Torah, that corresponds to Priya V'Rivya, that's how we had the son Yitzhak. And from here we see the Magen David says הצורה של האות ה' שהיא סגורה נפרדת להוליד היא בצורת עובר הנותן במי אמו. And if you pay attention to the letter Hey, it looks like a womb. The way a woman's womb, the way it opens up in order for the baby to come out, that's the shape of it as well. So we see that, and all that is corresponding to Sefer Devarim. I know we went very far off, but let's bring it back. This is all in regards to what we're going to start learning. And this is something that we're going to be learning for the next 8 weeks, maybe 8 or 10 weeks. And after we finish learning this, if people want to continue tapping into this treasure cove of segulot, of Zara Dekaima, of Teshuvah, of bringing Mashiach, of bringing the Geulah, tap into this book. Tap into Sefer Devarim. A little bit more about the book. In Devarim Rabbah, the Midrash, it says, בשעה שהגיעו ימי משה להיפטר מן העולם, when the time came for Moshe to pass away from the world, Moshe spoke to God and he tells him, ריבונו של עולם, דבר אחד אני מבקש ממך לפני מותי. Moshe Rabbeinu tells God, there's one thing that I ask of you before I pass. שאכנס ויבקעו כל השערים בשמיים ותהומות ויראו שאין זולתך. He says, when the time that I pass, please, I beg of you, Hashem, let the heavens and the earth open up and let the whole world see that there's no one else but you. Now, how do we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was heard? How do we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was acquiesced to this request? So the Maser Rokeach says, by way of Rabbi Avraham Galanti on the book of Echa, he says, Yeshnam tat kana rekeim. There are 955 heavens, or heavens, like rekeim, rakia. Shedarkam aleh malach matat et tfilot Israel. That when the Jewish people pray, there's an angel. He's called, we can't say his name, but we can say matat, which is mem tet tet. He's I think we did a class on him. It's Chanoch, that he was taken when he was alive. He got transformed from a human to an angel, and he never died. And he is a special angel, multitasker, has a lot of different positions in the heavens. One of the things that he does is he takes all the tefillot of the Jewish people and he brings them up through 915 layers in the heavens. Even though that he has permission only to go to 900, not to 955, אין לו רשות לעלות ל-900 רקיעים, אבל בתוך נון הרקיעים העליונים אין לו רשות לעלות, ועל זה נאמר, הן לשם אלוהיך השמיים ושמי השמיים. הארץ וכל אשר בה. There's a pasuk in Devarim that says, pay attention to the wording. Hen, hey, and nun, right? Hen, Lashem Elokecha, or to Hashem, the God, the Lord, Hashamayim v'shmei Hashamayim, the heavens and the higher heavens. Haaretz v'chol asher ba, the land and all that's inside of it, it's all that's included in the world. The word hen, what's the numerical value of hen? Hey is 5, nun is 50, 55. Meaning hen Lashem. There's 55 that nobody goes to. 955 layers of reki'im b'shamayim. The tefillot need to go all the way up to reach kisei hakavod. When you reach to 900, that's where the angels have up until here. No entry past 900. And then from the next 55, nobody can enter. That's why it says, Hen Lashem Elokecha. The 55 is Lashem Elokecha. Those are only for Hashem. Derech Hagav, now it's going to blow you away. Remember when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to the heavens to get the Torah? And the angels were like, they were resisting and they're saying, what is a human being doing amongst us? What does Hashem tell him? Hold on to my chair and give him an answer. What's the problem over there? He's next to the chair. He's next to the chair. They're only able to reach 900. There's 55 other reki'im that they can't reach, and all we see over there, Moshe Rabbeinu next to Kisei HaKavod. That's what they couldn't understand. We can only get to 900. You have a human being next to Kisei HaKavod. It's something that we never, unless you don't learn this, you don't pick it up. Incredible. So anyways, Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, Hashem, open up the whole world and open up the earth and the heavens, open it up so everybody can see that there's no one but you. Did Moshe Rabbeinu get his request? The Maaser Rokeach by way of Avraham Galanti says no, but let me explain to you what happened instead. There's 955 Rekeim, 900 are the angels can participate in them, 55 they cannot. And he brings us the pasuk to back it up. And he says that in correspondence to what we just learned, know that there's 955 pesukim in the book of Devarim. Just like there's 955 rekeim, there's 955 pesukim in Sefer Devarim. Every time you say a pasuk, it opens up another rakia, another rakia, another rakia. Every pasuk in Sefer Devarim. ולכן אמר בדיוק תתקנה פסוקים, and that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, what did he do? Who wrote Sefer Devarim? Moshe Rabbeinu. Why specifically 955? In order to achieve that he wanted to split the heavens to show there's no one but God. Hashem says, I can't do that. But every single pasuk will be able to do that for every single individual that says Sefer Devarim. כדי לפקוע את כל תתקנה רקיעים ויראו שאין אלוקים זולתו יתברך. How do you see it? There is no other God but God. Read Sefer Devarim, all 955 reki'im open up for you, and you're able to see on a personal level that there's no God but God. Furthermore, now that we know that this book has the power to open up the heavens, every single one, even the ones that the angels don't reach, past the 900, all the way to 55. Interestingly, I have a friend in Texas that him and his wife read Sefer Devarim every Shabbat. They have a great deal. She does all 900 and he does the rest 55. And that's their thing, and they're okay with it. She likes it. It's like a book of Tehillim for her. She tells him somewhere in the afternoon, I'm done. He comes in, does the last 55. It's cute. Okay, it says, Bedor yatom ze, in the orphan generation that we're in right now, mitzvah v'chova al kol Yehudi lakpid bechol yom likro misefer Mishneh Torah. He says we're in a orphan generation. A person should be very particular and should be makpid to read every single day something from the book of Devarim. Lesayem bechol yom or bechol shavua. So like that, at least he's able to finish the book every single day or at least once a week. Bechol hamarbeh tavo alav beracha. And anyone that increases the learning in this book, he'll be more blessed. I want to add one more thing. We didn't even start the class. I'm sorry. We did not even start the class. I'm just giving you a little bit of an introduction about the book. We're starting to it's important. Let's give it the hashivut of what it is. Sometimes everybody just, okay, let's jump to the pasuk. Great, we got the pasuk. You walk out. Sometimes you need to feel, you need to understand. We're dealing over here with things that come from the Shamayim, things that are able to open up Rekeim. If you don't know it, how are you gonna activate it? It says in Shevilei Pinchas, he brought something also incredible. It says, the Megillah Amikot says that there are Taf Kuf Chavchet Mishnayot. He says that there's 528 chapters in the Mishnayot, which is exactly the same numerical value of the word Mafteach. The amount of Mishnayot, the amount of chapters of Mishnayot is 528, which is equivalent to the numerical value of the word Mafteach, key. Why? Because we know we have Torah Shebechtav and Torah Shebe'al Peh. Torah Shebechtav is the Torah that was written for us. Kadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe Rabbeinu, that's the written Torah. There's another Torah, it's the oral Torah. What's the oral Torah? That's the Mishnayot, that's the Gemara, that's what all the rabbis had an oral tradition that got passed down from rabbi to rabbi, from father to son, and everybody had a tremendous amount of capabilities to withhold all that information and know it as if it was, common knowledge. But as the generations deteriorated, they saw that if they don't write down the oral tradition, it'll be forgotten as well. And that's why the Mishnah and the Gemara is written. Back in the days, it was oral, completely, everybody knew it by heart. So now that it's written, it's very interesting that the oral Torah, which expounds on the written Torah, it's the way, this is almost like it's cryptic. This is like a code. In order to open it up, we need a Mishnah. In order to open up the Mishnah, we need a Gemara. In order to open up the Gemara, we need a Shulchan Aruch. And then we have all these books. What are all these books? It's just opening and more of an understanding in order to make it palpable for us, as opposed to just reading the pasuk and grabbing from it what we think it says over there. Because you have to understand, previous generations, they were on a much higher spiritual level. What they understood is not what we understood. That's why you have to be very careful for those people that just read a pasuk and says, but it says in the pasuk. It says in the pasuk, right? Al tochal chalav begdi emo. Oh, only a sheep and milk is allowed. That's what it says. Chalav and gdi. Yeah, but the oral tradition teaches us that there's way more than that. So anyways, the oral tradition is something that we have. And the oral tradition is the mafteach. It's the key to understanding the Torah. The Bnei Saschar also brings that the 22 days that we have Ben HaMetzarim have 528 hours in them that correspond to the 528 Mishnayot that we have. And he said the way the way he connects it is that the reason why we have Ben HaMetzarim is because we're in the galut, we're in the exile. And he says, En kol hagaluyot halalu mitkansot ela b'zchut hamishnayot. He says all these exiles that we're on, they're not going to end unless we attach ourselves to the learning of Mishnah. Not only that, the Arizal says, Noagim lakum ha'yeshiva ba'eretz v'ashet al-safsalim achei chatzot yom shabbat Mashiach ben David. He says on Tisha B'Av, when we get up from the floor on the middle of the day, why do we have that custom? The Arizal says because that's the time the Mashiach is born. The time that we get up from the floor on Tisha B'Av, he says that's the time the Mashiach is born. There's no longer a need to mourn. Get up, Mashiach is here. He says, "Anu kamim min haaretz b'sha'ah shehi keneged Mishnah, lo matza Kadosh Baruch Hu ki machzir b'chal Yisrael la'shalom." Sfat Emet says, "Sefer Devarim nikra Mishneh Torah." That Sefer Devarim is called Mishneh Torah, the review of the Torah. Ki hu kolel shtei Torot, Torah shebechtav and Torah shebe'al peh. Keep in mind, the Torah, the oral Torah, was the 4 books that we just read. Moshe Rabbeinu, he's the one that passed on the oral tradition. What is the first Mishnah in Pirkei Avot? Does anybody know it by heart? Come on, impress me. Moshe Kibel. No, you're right. It starts like that. But Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph is Moshe, go ahead.
Moshe kiva Torah לזקנים
מסיני,
מסיני
ומסרה
ומסרה to
יהושע,
Yeshua to
לזקנים,
זקנים and the Leviim
זקנים לנביאים, ונביאים אסרו על אנשי.
כנסת הגדולה.
Very good. So we have an oral tradition. I never get those applause and I say way more than that. What is this? What was that? So we say that Moshe received the Torah from Sinai. Once he received it, he gave it to Yoshua. So does it mean he took the book and gave it to Yoshua? No, he gave the oral tradition over to Yoshua. Yoshua passed it to the elders, the elders to the prophets to the men of the great assembly, and it continued from rabbi to rabbi, from father to son, until it's to your local rabbi in the pulpit. And that's how we have the Torah. So Moshe Ben was the one that learned the oral Torah and the written Torah. So we have over here Sefer Devarim is the combination of both. So when you learn, so it says over here, Sfat Emet, that Sefer Devarim Mishneh Torah. What's Mishneh? From the word Shnaim. It has two Torahs in it. Torah Shebechtav and Torah Shebe'al Peh. Lastly, the reason why Ezra Sofer instituted that we're going to read from Sefer Devarim exactly right before Tisha B'Av, because the Jewish people damaged Pagmu Israel b'Torah shebechtav v'Torah shebe'al peh. The Jewish people, they damaged the Torah learning of the oral Torah and the written Torah, and in order to rectify it, what's the best way to rectify it? Start learning Sefer Devarim. With that introduction, we'll begin tonight's lesson.
An hour later.
Now, it's very interesting. This book was written on the 40th year in the desert. So, why? Moshe could have been writing this book as he's going along. At one point, he knows he's going to pass. At one point, he knows that he has to give the Jewish people some sort of a farewell speech, right? Why is it that Moshe Ben waited for the 40th year in order to give over this lesson? In order to give over this Sefer Devarim and everything that's in it.
Because that's when he knew that he was supposed to leave the world. He only found out then.
So, right, so let's just say everybody knows that they're going to die. So you write a biography. You start writing it from your 30s, 40s, 50s, and by the time the guy reaches 70 or 80, he has all the content. Why? But did he specifically wait till the end, where Moshe Rabbeinu was at the 40th year of the Jewish people in the desert? So it's the Netivot Shalom, which, by the way, I believe either tomorrow or Thursday is going to be his yurtzeit, and we're going to be celebrating him. Baruch Hashem, we've been learning a lot from his book. It's good that we light a candle in his honor. It says, pay attention to the Pesukim. Well, maybe it's a good time to start. I'm only going to give a little bit. Yeah, we'll read 5 Pesukim just to give some background. These are the words that Moshe spoke to the Jewish people on the other side of the Jordan, במדבר, בערבה, מול סוף, בין פרן, ובין תופל, ולבן, וחצרות, ודי זהב. On the sea of opposite the sea of reeds, between Paran and Tofel, and Laban, and Chatzerot, and Di Zahav. So, if this was like a GPS location, it'd be like a very long, title. Moshe, could you send me your marker? Where are you? It'd show up. I'm over here, Ba'arava, Musuf, Ben Paran, Ben Tofel, Velav, Chatzerot, Vedi Zahav. That's where I am. Okay, it's a lot. It could have been just Mulsuf, would have been enough. Ben Paran, enough. Why do we need all that? Well, it's cryptic, and we're going to have to get a little bit deeper into it to understand why all these words. It continues to say, give us more background. 11 days from Chorev by way of Mount Seir of Kadesh Barnea. And it was So again, we thought that the GPS location was done. No. As a matter of fact, it's also 11 days from Chorev by way of Har Seir, all until you reach Kadesh Barnea. Additional location markers to say where he spoke these words. ויהי ב-40 שנה ב-12 חודש באחד לחודש, and it was on the 40th year, the 11th month of the first of the month. דיבר משה אל בני ישראל. Now we have the date of when Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to the Jewish people. ככל אשר ציווה השם אותו עליהם. Everything that Hashem commanded him to do, to say. And when did this happen? אחרי הכותו את שיחות מלך האמורי, אשר יושב בחשבון, ואת עוג מלך הבשן, אשר יושב בשדרות אדרעי. And all this happened after he smitten, hit, fought, won the war against Sichon, the king of Emori, that was living in an area, settling in an area called Heshbon. And after he also beat his other giant brother, Og, who was the king of the Bashan. And his location where he was settling is Ashterot Be'edrei. And all this was happening Be'ever HaYarden Be'eretz Moab. Ho'il Moshe Be'eret HaTorah Zot Lemor. And it says that this happened on the other side of the Jordan, in the land of Moab. Moshe began to explain this Torah, saying, and he starts to go into it. Now you can see already that the style of the writing is a little bit different from what we're used to. The Torah has a different style to it, the way that it's written. God spoke, God commanded, Moshe followed through. We have like this reporting of either the Jews doing the right in the eyes of God, or either they're sinning, or they're transgressing, or they're complaining. We have all these different things that have taken us throughout the journey of the 40 years in the desert. But nevertheless, over here we see this is Moshe's stylistic writing of Sefer Torah. So it says over here, שהתורה כתבה את כל הפרטים מתי הייתה ההוכחה של משה ב-40 שנה וב-12 חודש ואחר כתוב את סיחון מלך האמורי ואת עול מלך הבשן. It says the Torah is writing all these details that Moshe Rabbeinu on the 40th year, on the 11th month, on the first day, after he bit Sichon, after he bit Og Melech HaBashan. Why do we need all these details? Mashma, there has to be a reason. Shekol HaPratim Ha'elu Drushim. They're necessary. They had to be mentioned. The Torah doesn't put any extra words because it feels like it. Hayat Tzorech Ladvarim Shemoshe Diber. There was a need to every single thing that was mentioned in the Torah. Ve'ilo היה חסר פרט מהם, if one thing was missing, לא היה יכול משה לדבר את הדברים שבא לומר כלל ישראל. If he was missing just one word, one location, he wouldn't be able to pass over the message properly. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהכל נהיה מדברו. Let's start with the number 40. Chazal tell us in Masechet Avot, Ben 40 labina. When a person reaches the age of 40, hopefully hopefully right. And when a person reaches the age of 40, he's reached the age of wisdom. Bina. בגיל 40, עת שתשש כבר תוקף כוח יצרה. Also at the age of 40, the יצרה is not as strong anymore. Why? First of all, if the guy is, a Torah Jew, from his bar mitzvah up until 40, he's a warrior. He's been fighting the Yetzirah day in and day out, 30 plus years, 20 plus years, right? So he's a fighter, he's fighting. The Yetzirah gets tired too. He's like, oh, you know what, this guy, there's some days that he beats me, there's some months that he beats me, there's some years that he beats me. He's not as strong as before. Also, the desires of man change. When they're younger, all they care about is sports and friends. When they get older, all they want to do is make money. After a while, all they want to do is they chase the woman and they want to get married. And after that, there's different, inclinations that a person deals with. At the age of 40, he's married, he's established, he's got children. Everything is sort of like anything that the Yitzhak would use for him to sin, he already turned it into a mitzvah. He got married to have a wife. He has children. He goes to work and everything is honest. Meaning everything that he would use for him to sin, the guy was able to capture, and now he's doing it by way of mitzvah. What's left? And not only that, he's in 40, he has his routine. He wakes up in the morning, he goes to tefillah, he has a class, he's busy all day working and supporting his family. He comes home, he's working on his shlom bayit, he goes to sleep. This guy's busy, he's already figured himself out. So at 40, the challenge is not as much as 15 and 16 and 17 or 22 or 23 or 31 or 32. Those are years that every decade has its powerful yetzer hara that the person has to struggle with. So when a person gets to the age of 40, he gets three things. One, binah, wisdom. Two, koach, right? He gets the koach of the yetzer hara starts to dissipate.
What if he's not set with all that stuff?
Huh?
What if he's not set with all that stuff?
Then he's still struggling.
Problem.
That's a problem. That's why that's why Masechet Avot tells us what to do. It tells us, as a matter of fact, you're going to make me pull it out, that the 5 is for Mishnah, the 13 is for Bar Mitzvah, 18 is for marriage, 20 a person has to go to work, and then the person has to get married, then for Binah, then for Kochai. It gives us like a menu of what you need to do your entire life, age by age by age by age, and we follow the ethics of our forefathers, right? The Pirkei Avot. We follow the ways of the Avot to tell us what should I do in this age. I'm 30 years old. Should I still be on the basketball court? Right? I'm 40 years old. Should I still be looking for a wife? Oh, you're behind. What are you doing? If you're still playing on basketball when you should be looking for a wife, and when you're still looking for, when you should be married, you're still, you're still dating, you're off, you're behind. So you have to catch up. That's why it's good to take the advice of the rabbis to do everything at its right thing. That's what we always say when we congratulate someone. What do you say? B'sha'a tova. What? That it was done at the right time. Okay? So, at 40, the yetzer hara becomes weaker. The person has wisdom. And thirdly, הכוח הרוחני מתגבר על כוח החומרי. At the age of 40, the spiritual side of the individual overpowers the physical side. And now that he's reached this level, יכול לתקן את העבר. Now you could say, oh, I was such a sinner in my 20s. I was such a sinner in my 30s. It's time to do a serious teshuvah. So when is the time to reflect? 40. Up until 40, push. Don't look back. Just keep going. Just keep keep learning. Keep praying. Keep striving to be successful in your work, successful in your marriage, having children. Avodah. When you get to 40, when the yetzer hara is weaker, your spiritual side is stronger, then you say, let me look back. Maybe there's a tikkun I need to do. Because הכוח הרוחני מתגבר הכוח החומרי. Furthermore, it says the Jewish people were in the desert for 40 years. What does it say in Yirmiyah? Zacharti la chesed na'orayich. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembers when we were na'arim. What's na'arim? Young. Lads. Right? I remember when you were a lad. Right? וכל החטאים שחטאו והטעויות הרוחניים הקשים שעברו עליהם במשך כל 40 שנה. He says, I remember all the sins that you did during the 40 years. Why? Because up until you turn spiritually 40, you're a youngster. So now Moshe Rabbeinu was talking to the Jewish people that are what? Spiritually 40 years old. Because they became Jews on the first year, and they had to grow through their spiritual process for 40 years. Now that they're spiritually mature, Moshe Rabbeinu says, now I can talk to you differently. And that's why he waited 40 years. He was waiting for them to be spiritually mature, because now they can accept what he's about to say and understand. Before, na'arim, you were like little kids. The 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, they're still struggling. At 40, you're bashel. You know what's bashel? You're ripe. You have binah, you have experience, you're spiritually mature. And it says over there, Ad Hashana Harba'im, until the 40th year, Lo hayta lahem yetzivut ruchanit ad 40 shana. They weren't stable in their spirituality up until the 40th year. לא היו מסוגלים עדיין לשמוע ולהבין את הדברים מפי משה. They weren't able to listen and understand and comprehend. As it says in Sefer Devarim, we're going to see later on, Moshe Rabbeinu is going to tell them about how they were in this spiritual status, where they were told what to do and they didn't do it. They were warned and they still sinned. As it says, ולא נתן השם לכם לב לדעת ועיניים לראות ואוזניים לשמוע עד היום הזה. Remember, this is the speech at year 40. He says, up until today, you didn't have an open heart, and you didn't have eyes that can see, eyes that can, spiritual eyes that can see, and ears that can hear up until today. This is why I'm telling you the things that I'm telling you today. Because before, you couldn't comprehend. Before, you couldn't hold. It's even said about a student and a teacher relationship. שהתלמיד לא יורד לדעת רבו עד 40 שנה. He says you could have a rabbi, and for 40 years it's going to take you before you understand what the rabbi is really saying to you. Meaning, for 40 years, whatever your rabbi tells you, don't say a word. You're not spiritually mature to understand what he's telling you after 39 years of him being your rabbi. On the 40th year, now I get it. Now I get it. Now, it's interesting that it says over here, שלא היה להם עיניים לראות ואוזניים לשמוע. For anybody that was at the Rosh Chodesh class last night, we know what we spoke about. What is the rectification of the month of Tammuz and the rectification of the month of Av? Tammuz is the tikkun ha'inayim, tikkun ha're'iyah. Av is tikkun ha'shmi'ah. Right? What happens? We get into a situation where we have the wrong outlook, negative outlook, the wrong vantage point, the wrong lenses on. We see the world the wrong way. Comes the month of Tammuz and says, fix your vision, put on your Torah glasses, and start to see things the way that they are. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying. We weren't able to see the world through Torah glasses. And then we said the month of Ab is Shmi'ah, right? It's about hearing the word of God and listening to the word of God. And there's times that we weren't able to do it. So many times in the desert we sinned. Comes the month of Ab and says, come and fix it. As a matter of fact, we see that all the calamities that happened between Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av is that we saw things the wrong way and we didn't listen to the name of God, to the words of God, and we kept sinning. It's a collection of things that we saw things the wrong way, a collection of things that we didn't listen to God. Going to Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, everything is there. As a matter of fact, Kamsa Bar Kamsa that we said yesterday. What was the whole thing? What was the whole thing of Kamsa Bar Kamsa? That everything was Re'iyah v'Shmi'ah that was negative. Furthermore, it says over there, it mentions the war of Sichon Melech HaEmori ve'Og Melech HaBashan. Why is it so important for us to mention Sichon and Og? So everything that's physical in the world has a spiritual equivalent in the heavens. Sichon and Og were two giants. And there were two giants that belonged to the dark side. They represented two of the hardest klipot in the world. And these two negative spiritual husks needed to be removed from this world in order for the Jewish people to enter the land of Israel. As a matter of fact, as it says, כי סיחון ואוג היו כוחות הקליפה הקשים ביותר ששכנו לפני ארץ ישראל בעת שעמדו ישראל להיכנס אליה. They were the strongest negative spiritual energies in the world at that time. And they are the ones שהסתירו את אור האלוקות מישראל. As long as they're around, they conceal the light of God from the Jewish people. וכל זמן, as long as they were alive, אין יהודי מרגיש את אור האלוקות ואינו מסוגל לעשות תשובה. As long as they're there, as long as Og and Sichon are alive, they can't see the light of God and they can't do a full, proper teshuvah. Could you imagine? So they had to Moshe Rabbeinu had to get rid of them. And the Pesukim, Chazal tell us in Baba Batra, on the 88th page on the second side, there's a pasuk that says, "Al ken yomru hamoshelim bo cheshbon." Right? What's bo cheshbon? It says, well, first of all, let's say what those klipot are. He says, Bo cheshbon, cheshbon is to make cheshbon, to make calculations. That's the mind. Edrei means an arm. That's action. They represented the two klipot of what? Of thought and action. They were the negative klipot in the world of how to negative thinking and negative actions. And he had to remove them in order for the Jewish people to enter the land of Israel. That's why he says, Al ken yomeru hamoshelim. Who's a moshelim? Moshelim are the rulers, the conquerors. Those that are in control of their bo heshbon. Hamoshelim beyatzram. Those that are in control of their evil inclination. Bo cheshbon, bo v'nachshov cheshbono shel olam. Now let's think about God, because keep in mind, when somebody has negative thoughts in your mind, social media, internet, WhatsApp, blogging, video, Hollywood, Netflix, right? What's cheshbon? He's got your mind busy. How are you ever going to think about God? Moshe Rabbeinu removed that klipa from the world, that a person can do what? Make cheshbon. אבל יצור, חשבונו של עולם, ונחשוב חשבונו של עולם. Meaning that you can now think about God. And when you think about God, you think about how to connect to God, and how to perform the Torah, and how to get to a higher level. So Moshe Rabbeinu took care of that first, חשבון. And then it says, I moshel beyetzro, one who is able to control his evil inclination, is able to do cheshbon nefesh amiti. You can do a proper teshuvah process. One who is in control of his evil inclination. Somebody who is struggling with desires, physical pleasures, vices, addictions, it's hard for them to do a proper teshuvah, because something is always pushing them back into the dark side. In order to do that, a person needs to have a clear mind. Proper teshuvah process starts with a clear mind. Why? Somebody who wants to do a true introspect, he has to have a clear mind. That his evil, that his desires, his physical desires, his wants, his vices are not the ones that are always compromising his teshuvah process. Like for example, somebody who's a gambler. You know how it is. Once they lose, they swear off of it, right? And then what they do, they get $100. What happens? Not the Masao Matan with the Yetzer Hara. Listen, yesterday I swore to God that I'm not gambling anymore. But the machines, that's not gambling. It's like a video game.
Fun.
Just for fun. I just want to hear the sounds and listen to the music. The Yetzer Hara got him now to walk through the hard rock. He walked through the guitar. Now he's there. The guy now puts his money and he's got the video machines, right? He's going like this. Me play poker? I swore off of poker. Me play blackjack? God forbid. The guy goes like this. Boom. The 100 turned into 1,000. Now what? Listen, you know what $1,000 does on the blackjack table? You know what? This one is the last one. Tomorrow, everything changes, right? So a person, it's hard for him to do teshuvah if you're still struggling with an addiction. Why? You're always going to have a te'avah that's pulling you away. And that goes for everything. I said gambling. That could be for food. That could be for drugs. That could be for people are addicted to money. People are addicted to sports. People are addicted to shopping. People are addicted to their telephones, to social. Everything that's pulling you away from God is going to be very hard for you to do a proper teshuvah process. That's why he says, Elu amoshelim becheshbon. The ones that control the mind that makes the cheshbon. Those are the ones that are going to be successful.
What's cheshbon?
Cheshbon calculations. So, what we have over here is that the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu waited 40 years to start off his speech, to start off his farewell Sefer Devarim, is because they needed to be spiritually mature. And they had to get rid of Sichon and Og, which were the klipot for Machshava and Maaseh. And not only that, they needed to also be cleared from all their, or be able to actually fight their inclinations to do a proper teshuvah process. Because a closeness to God cannot be achieved if you don't know how to do teshuvah. Because the teshuvah brings you closer. Because we said, Avera, Avar, Hey. When a person does Avera, he passed over the word of God. When he does teshuvah, is Tashuv, Hey. The Hey comes back, the closeness comes back. That's why when we have korbanot, what's korban? The korban is the kiruv. It brings the person closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The sin makes you farther from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The korban brings you karov, kiruv, closer to Hashem. So we have from over here the concept that every Jew should know. You have to get really good at knowing how to do teshuvah. It's going to create a lot of closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, close to the religion, and you're going to live out your true essence in this world, because we're human beings, we're going to sin. When we sin, we need to know how to come back. If we don't come back, Sammy knows exactly how to keep you down. So what do we want to do? We want to make sure that we do a proper teshuvah process, and this is why Moshe Rabbeinu did it on the 40th year. This is why Moshe Rabbeinu did it after Og and Sichon. And this is why he also made sure that the process of teshuvah will be a proper teshuvah, that they'll be able to fight their evil inclination and win their spirituality. Ironic. I just want to throw it in because we just had a Rosh Chodesh class. Look what we're learning. It's so funny that we're learning about teshuvah and being spiritually mature and overpowering the evil inclination when we're dealing about the month of Tammuz and Av, the months that deal with us sinning with our vision and with our hearing. And we know that Tammuz is Zman Teshuvah Memashmesh Umagia. Get ready, the Teshuvah season is upon us. And then comes Av. What's Av? Elul Ba. Wake up. Elul is coming. Right? So all these concepts of Teshuvah that are flying around are not by happenstance, or by design. Everything is by design. That the Moshe Rabbeinu is now telling us all this. As a matter of fact, even for the Kabbalists in the room, when you do the tefillah of Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, we are instructed to say one of God's names in the Musaf. Remember the 12 permutations of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, 12 permutations of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. What does it say over there? What is the name of Av? So we said Nisan is Yud He and Vav He, and the pasuk for that is Ismechu Hashamayim v'Tagel Haaretz. That's God's name for Nisan. The same way that we always see it, we always write it. Yud and He, Vav and He. Right? And they give us a pasuk to remember it. Now, when it comes to Av, what is the name of God for the Yud Kei Vav Kei name for the month of Av? Well, it's Hey, Vav, and Yud and Hey. So he said, Baruch Atah Hashem, and your Hashem needs to be Hey, Vav, Yud and Hey. And in order for us to remember it, they give us a pasuk. The Rashet Tevot of the pasuk is Hasket Ushma Israel Hayom. That even the pasuk for the month of Av is what? Hasket Ushma. Quiet, listen. Hashem is speaking. Quiet, listen. The nation of Israel today. Meaning the whole purpose of the month of Av is maybe we went off the derech. Maybe we did all these different things. Moshe Rabbeinu was going to tell us, maybe you sinned. It's time to come back. Maybe you don't listen to the way of God. Hasket Ushma Israel Hayom. It's time to come back. That's the energy. That's the spiritual energy of the time that we're in. As the Baal HaTanya says, Chayav Adam Lichyot Im Hazman. Baal HaTanya says that you have to live with the times. What do you mean live with the times? Watch CNN, watch Fox News all day long? No. Look at the Parashat Shavua. Everything's going to be there for what you need to do. Now, with all that being said, Moshe Rabbeinu knew the right time and the right words to say to the Jewish people in order for them to do teshuvah. Because keep in mind, what Moshe Rabbeinu is realizing here as a reality is that he's no longer going to be there. He can no longer broker a peace treaty between the Jewish people and God the way that they've been used to for the past 40 years. Should they transgress, what do they need to? What can they do? He's teaching them to say, you better get really good at doing teshuvah by yourself. I'm no longer going to be here to go up all the way to the heavens to negotiate for you every time you make a sin like I've done for the past 40 years. You better do it yourself. Get good at doing teshuvah. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is doing over here. He's going to let them know how they sinned, how they got out of it, and how in the future to get out of any future problems themselves. Self-help, self-care. Do it for yourself. Don't depend on anyone else. How did he do it? What was his technique? What was Moshe's technique in teaching the Jewish people to do teshuvah? It's called a tochacha, a rebuke. When you tell somebody off in a way that on their own they come back. It's an art. We don't know how to do it. Maybe it's forgotten. Maybe some people are successful doing it. Anybody who's a parent over here, how hard is it to get your children to do what you want them to do? It's hard, right? Wouldn't it be amazing if you could say something and they do it on their own? Moshe Rabbeinu gave us that formula today. Remember the Pesukim that we read earlier. It says, "Ele hadevarim asher diber Moshe el kol Yisrael be'ever Yarden במדבר בערבה מול סוף ben param ben tofel ולבן בחצרות בדי זהב." The first pasuk of the parasha that gives us all these coordinates of where Moshe Rabbeinu spoke these words to the Jewish people. Rashi gives us a very interesting insight to this pasuk. He says, "Lefi shehen divrei tochachot." Because these words are words of rebuke. Stop. These are words of rebuke. Up until now, we just thought it was a location. We just thought it was names of places. Rashi is revealing to us that Moshe Rabbeinu is actually rebuking. Rebuking? It's like I'm telling you, I am right now in Brooklyn, on Ocean Parkway, Avenue N, next to Amnon's Pizza, that is 10 miles away from Queensbridge, and over there I'm going to have a falafel by Moshe's stand. Is that a tochacha? Does that feel like a rebuke? Not at all. But yet Rashi tells us these different places that he said were a rebuke. Lefi shehen divrei tochachot, because what this pasuk is saying is a rebuke. Umana kan kol hamkomot shechisu lifnei hamakom bahem. He says Moshe Rabbeinu strategically chose every place where the Jewish people angered God. All these different names of places, every single place is a place where they angered HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lefichach satam et hadvarim ve'izkiran beremez. That's why he said it in a hint. Every single place that he mentioned, there was some sort of a mishap that happened over there between the Jewish people and God, and that's why he only mentioned it by way of a hint, beremez. Why? Mipnei kevodan shel Yisrael, because of the honor of the Jewish people. Before I continue, I just felt like I really have to throw this in there because we already spoke about it. We spoke about it yesterday. And there was a section in yesterday's class that I didn't mention, and I want to throw it in here. We have to be very careful with each other. We have to be very, very, very careful with another Jew. You know why? Because the Jew is the son of God. He's royalty. She's royalty. He's a prince. He's a princess. You don't talk to a prince and a princess the way you talk to a guy in the street. Sometimes we get so comfortable with our wives, with our husbands, with our children, with our friends, that we disrespect them in the way we talk to them. And even when they do something wrong, Hashem gets angered when we speak about them in a disrespectful way, or we speak to them in a disrespectful way. That's why we have to be very, very careful with another Jew's honor. Where do we learn that from? Moshe Rabbeinu. That even now when he mentions every single place that the worst things have happened in the past 40 years, and in a second we'll get the details, what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? He hints not to hurt their feelings, not to embarrass another Jew. Tana Debi Eliyahu in Rabam brings something very interesting, and I want you to hear this. כך אמר להם הקדוש ברוך הוא לישראל. הקדוש ברוך הוא says this to the Jewish people. בניי, אהוביי, my children, my beloved, כלום חיסרתי דבר שאבקש מכם. He says, I've never asked for anything from you. ומה אני מבקש מכם? But I am going to make one request from you. אלא שתהיו אוהבים זה את זה. Please love one another. ותהיו מכבדים זה את זה. And honor one another. ותהיו יראים זה מזה. Have fear of hurting another Jew. This is, Tana de Belial says, there's a conversation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, it's like a father speaking to a son. It's like, you know, like as if I would talk to my child and say, my son, I love you. Please, if there's one thing I ask of you, be respectful with your sister. Talk nicely to your brother. You know, be scared to hurt their feelings. That's what Hashem is telling His own people. And as a matter of fact, there's some pesukim that back it up that say, Lo tisnat achicha belvavecha. In Sefer Vayikra it says, don't hate your brother in your heart. And of course, the famous pasuk that capsulizes the entire Torah, that Hillel says that can teach the whole Torah on one leg. What is it? Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Zekla gadol b'Torah. Rabbi Akiva says, don't do unto others what you don't want to be done unto you. Love your brother like the way you would love yourself. And Admor HaZaken says, Neshama yoredet la'olam hazeh v'chaya 70-80 shana. He says a soul comes down into this world and lives for 70 or 80 years. Kedei la'asot liyehudi tova b'gashmiyut u'bifrat b'ruchaniyut. That a person comes into this world and lives for 70 and 80 years for the sole purpose that he can do one good thing, either in a spiritual realm or physical realm, to another Jew. Imagine this entire life that you live, that God put you here, is just so you be kind to another Jew. That you could do something good for another Yehudi. We have to be very, very careful with other Jews, and it starts at home. We get so comfortable with being disrespectful to our loved ones. Our children, sometimes husbands, sometimes wives, sometimes family, mother, father, brother, sister. They're royalty. The fact that they're close family doesn't mean that you can disrespect them that way. We get so comfortable. Sometimes we respect the people that are in the street more than we respect the people that are in the home. That's why we have to be very, very careful to honor every single Jew. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, when he said the opening pasuk of his Tochacha, the rebuke of the Jewish people, to tell them off, to say you are bad, and you need to be good, and you need to know how to do teshuvah properly. What does he say? He says, בעבר הירדן, במדבר, בערבה, מול סוף, בין פרן, בין תופל, לבן, וחצרות, בדי זהב. It's like, I'll use the example I used before differently. Remember when we were in Brooklyn on Ocean Parkway? That's when we drove on Shabbat. And then we went to East 12th. That's where you ate the non-kosher pizza. And then we went over there to the Queens Bridge. That's when we stole a car. Chas v'shalom, Meaning he said the things that, to remind you of all the bad things that we did. But he didn't say, you ate non-kosher, you didn't keep Shabbat, and you stole a car. He tells you the locations. And by way of saying the locations, you understand what you did wrong. Nice. Clever. But let's see. It says the art of rebuke, right? Hinting to the offense, not actually saying it. To get a better understanding, I'll give you 5 examples. It says, Bamidbar, Ba'arava, Mulsuf, Ben Paran, Uven Tofel, Velavan, Chatzerot, Vedi Zahav. I'll just take a few from the first pasuk. It says, Bamidbar, in the desert. Why does it say the desert? They've been in the desert for 40 years. What does he have to remind them of the desert? Because they angered God in the desert. What did it say? Mi ten moten b'yad Hashem be'etz Mitzrayim. It said, Hotzetanu el hamidbar hazeh la'amit et kol ha'kahal. Remember, you said, you brought us into the desert to kill us? So what is Moshe Rabbeinu is saying? He says the word desert. What he means is, remember how you complained that Hashem brought you to the desert and you wanted to go back to Egypt? That wasn't nice. Then he says, Ba'arava. What's Arava? Romez al ma shechatu beba'al peor beshitim ba'arvot Moab. Arava is the location where the Jewish people sinned with Bnot Moab and worshipped that Avodah Zarah, Baal Peor. So he doesn't say, oh, Bnot Moab, Baal Peor, and what happened over there. What does he say? Harava. I'm sorry, Ba'arava. What's Mulsuf? Mulsuf, he says, remember the rebellion that you did on Yamsuf. Remember, when they came out of Egypt on Yamsuf, what did they say to Moshe? Because remember, the Paro was behind them. To the right and to the left, they have enemies, and in front of them is the ocean. Right? This is before the splitting of the sea. So what did they say? There's no graves in Egypt. You brought us all the way here to kill us in the desert. So he didn't say that fully. What does he say? Mulsuf. The things that you said in front of Yamsuf. Ben Paran. What's Paran? He says they were in the part of the desert called Paran when the spies came back with a negative report. So he says, oh, remember we were in Paran? Hinting to the negative report from the spies. So the art of the rebuke over here is that he's saying very little and getting a very big message across. He's just saying one word, the name of the location, and the whole story is behind it. They get it. From here we learn how important it is that when you rebuke, be short with your words. Be very, very short with your words. The person that did something wrong, they know what they did. Just say one word, they understand. I'll do one last one. Vedi zahav. What's Vedi zahav? Chet ha'egel. It says over there, שנעשה בשביל ראש זהב שעליהם, כמו שנאמר, וכסף הרביתי להם, והזהב עשו לבעל, רומז על חטא העגל, ודי זהב, that's when they were sinning with the golden calf. So from here, we see something very interesting. Sometimes when we want to rebuke somebody, our knee-jerk reaction is to yell, to scream, and to give them every detail of what they did wrong. By the way, guilty as charged. I'm telling you, one of the biggest reasons why we are learning this class is because I'm struggling with the rebuke in my own home, with my family, with my wife, with my children, with people. Not only that, I have a mega guilty conscience about last night. Yesterday we had a very harsh lesson on Tisha B'Av, and the end of the lesson is that we're the problem. We're the problem. Why? Because it says, there's a pasuk, I didn't make things up, I'm just saying. It says, any generation that Bet HaMikdash was not built in its days, it's as if he destroyed it. So we're talking, we had some Dvarim Harifim at the end of the class. And then you read this, who am I to say? Who am I to rebuke? Maybe I hurt somebody's feeling. So this is something that I'm sure it hits home for me. But nevertheless, it's for every single person, because sometimes we want to say everything to make the point across. To say a harsh rebuke, you say every single detail. And sometimes with anger. And sometimes it causes an embarrassment to the individual. Sometimes there's a person in the crowd that gets embarrassed from what was just said. It hits home. Or sometimes you embarrass a child next to his friends or next to his brothers or sisters. Or maybe, it's uncomfortable to be exposed like that in a family setting. Shegorem tsar vebusha. And from here we learn, don't do that. That's not the right approach. What's the right approach? The Moshe Rabbeinu approach. What's the Moshe Rabbeinu approach? Linhog ba'adinut haba ubezehirut livror kol milah v'liyat katzar v'koleh. He says, do you know what's the right way to go about it? Be gentle, be careful, choose every word, short and to the point. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu is a pro. One word, there's a whole story. I wish I could speak to my kids and say, Lego, sneaker, walk away. And then, yeah, school. 5 words, they get the whole thing without having to say every single thing. But nevertheless, katzar v'koleh, short and to the point, is the best way to rebuke. Not with anger, not with a lot of words, and not with hurtful words, and not to hurt the person's feeling or embarrass them. We have to be very, very careful with another Jew. Hashem deposited a lot of precious souls in our hands, like our children. That doesn't mean that we can abuse them with words or with actions or whatnot. We have to be very, very careful. Furthermore, you should know human nature is that when somebody gets yelled at, when somebody gets insulted, it causes distance, and and nothing good comes out of it. Don't think that if you insult somebody, or if you yell at someone, or if you take that harsh approach, that it's going to be useful. He says, the nature of man, people love to be praised. People love to be told that they're great and they're good and they're phenomenal, right? And people love to feel loved, and they like that loving approach. However, when somebody comes to a person and gives them musar, v'machivim v'mashpilim, when somebody comes to give a rebuke to somebody and they hurt the individual or they insult the individual, it just creates distance. There's zero effect. So no, when you're yelling and you're screaming and you're insulting and you're hurting somebody's feeling, you're doing nothing. You're releasing your anger. It's for you. It's not for them. You might feel good because you're yelling and you're screaming and gives you some sort of a release. You know, they say on Shabbat, a person is not allowed to get angry. Why? Mishum etaken. What's mishum etaken? You're fixing yourself. You're calming yourself down. That anger is for you. It's not for anybody else. You're not to get by way of drash. Mishum etaken. You're fixing yourself when you're getting angry. But in reality, that has zero effect on the person. They're hearing you, but they're not internalizing anything. We actually see this not only from Moshe Rabbeinu. Pay attention that this approach is even used by Kadosh Baruch Hu. When Miriam sinned, when Miriam and Aharon spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the one to rebuke them? Kadosh Baruch Hu. Pay attention to the words that were used. In Sefer Bamidbar Yudbet, it says that Kadosh Baruch Hu comes to Miriam and Aharon. It says, Shim'u na devarai. What's na? Please. Hashem is coming to do a rebuke to Aharon and Miriam about Moshe Rabbeinu. What does that sound? Please listen to my words. Shim'u na devarai. The soft approach. En na el lashon bakasha. Diber itam benachat. Velo hayu devrav b'kaas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to them calmly and not by way of anger. V'hayu devarav nishma'im. When a person is calm, when a person is collected, when a person speaks pleasantly, the words enter the heart and the mind. Hadvarim nishma'im. He says, and if HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke like that to Miriam and to Aaron, and that was the approach, Kal v'chomer lebasar v'adam shiu davar benachat. From this, if Hashem acts like that, it's obvious that we need to act in the same way with another human being as well. Take a lesson from HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Miriam and Aharon. The Rambam in Ilchot De'ah says something incredible. Also gives you a formula of rebuke. He says, "Hamochiach et chavero ben bedvarim shebeno lebeno." You have a rebuke between two friends. And now you have to go back and forth. He did something wrong, whether it's business, whether it's personal. He says, Ben sheben beno, ben sheben no leben hamakom, whether the guy did something wrong between another person, or he did something wrong with God. The guy stopped eating kosher, not keeping Shabbat, whatever it is. Maybe he stole from another guy, maybe he's dishonest, whatever. The guy's off the derech. You're his friend, and you want to tell him. What's your approach? If he transgresses between God, or if he transgresses between another individual, yidaber lo benachat u'b'lashon raka, calmly and with soft words, soft language. V'yodio she'eno omer lo ela letovato lavio l'chaim haba. The only reason why I'm telling you this, it's for your own good, just so you don't lose your olam haba. It's a shame. You're a tzaddik. You're such a good person. Right now you're off the derech. Whatever you're doing right now, it's not appropriate. You shouldn't act like that with that guy. You shouldn't, seriously eating non-kosher pizza. You're starting to eat in restaurants just salads. You're telling me, it's the beginning of the end. What are you doing? I'm only doing this because I care for you. I'm only doing for this because I don't want you to lose your olam haba. That's the Rambam approach. Beautiful. Imagine you come with that. The guy, the guy's looking to get hammered over the head. You're talking to him about olam haba. You're talking about not angering. You're better than this. You're better than this sin. You should come back. Beautiful. He says, He says, don't go to your friend and speak to him so harshly until he can't talk anymore, meaning you've embarrassed him to the lowest level. And this is what the sages say. He says, what happens? There could be a reality where you tell off your friend, and all of a sudden, he's no longer going to be your friend. Panav mishtanot. Who are you to tell me? What, you think you're better than me? Well, I have to answer to you? I'm older than you, I'm richer than you, I'm smarter than you, whatever it is.
Oh, you're my dad.
Yeah, what are you, my dad? Panav mishtanot. His face changes with you and you can lose the friendship. So be careful. When you take the harsh approach, you can lose it. Talmud lomar velo tisa alav chet. Asur la'adam lachnim et Yisrael v'kol sheken berabim. From here we learn that you're not allowed to embarrass another Jew one-on-one, and even more so in public. I want to say over here, from personal experience, I have a lifelong friend, 30 years, Baruch Hashem li ayin hara, not one fight. Not one fight. We've been in a honeymoon since high school. Best friends. I can't even begin to tell you, one of the biggest gifts of my life, Hashem gave me a real friend in my life. Last year, he was going through some things, and I jumped in. And I don't know what happened. I felt that the 30-year relationship, and the fact that he's my brother, and the fact that he knows Torah, and the fact that he's this and he's that can bring down the hammer on him and he'll snap out of it. You know what happened? I almost lost my friend of 30 years. We had to take a break. We had to apologize. It took some time. We just recently started to talk back. It's not so simple. And I'm thinking, I'm going to use the... I know exactly. You know, he's the type of guy that if I give him tochacha, he's going to tell me, thank you for waking me up. You know what happened? He didn't tell me thank you. You know what he told me? He told me, buzz off. Go. This is a friend of 30 years. That's how you talk to me? This is the halacha. You have to be so careful. I relied on so much that I couldn't say. I should have taken a different approach. I was wrong. I should have used the Rambam. You're a tzaddik. Wow, you're olam haba. You're a giant in your community. Lo mat'im lecha. This is not a good look for you. I love you. Everybody I didn't do that. I went right away for the jugular. Wrong approach. Wrong approach. I'm telling you from personal example. This is I'm giving life to this Rambam. His face might change. My friend of 30 years, his face changed with me. We had to bring it back. We had to have an intervention. The wives had to get involved. We had to make a phone call. We had to do text, apologies, take a break, start talking a little bit. Just recently, it was like, oh, okay, we're back. We apologize. I don't know what got over me. I'm back. It was like, imagine, tochacha is not so simple. That's why even last night when we're telling people what's the right way to come back to be a Jew, it's not so simple. It doesn't hit so. Not every person can be told what to do. Who are you? What are you, better than me? That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was so careful with another Jew. That's why you have to be very, very careful when the time comes to tell somebody to, like yesterday, a girl approached me. She says, I go to shul and the girls are talking in shul. And I feel that it's my duty to walk over and tell them, ladies, please, I want to hear the chazanut. I want to hear the reading of the Torah. So she said something very funny. She walks over like a few weeks ago to a lady. He says, do you mind? I want to hear the Torah reading, and you guys are talking. She tells her, relax, it's my son. It was her son's bar mitzvah. So she tells her, even more so, and you feel so red, the mother of the bar mitzvah boy is the one that's talking in the middle of the reading. What are you going to do? She says, what do you do? Do you say a tochacha? How do you say back? I know I'm supposed to say something, but it's so difficult. There's an art to the rebuke. Sometimes, you come to people that, the woman is dressed immodestly. She's in shul with a mini skirt, or maybe she's not dressed properly. And as a woman, you just want to tell her, I just want to tell you, about tzniut. What happens? Oh, you're perfect, and I'm the problem? Who are you? Who do you think you are? I want to dress like this. I choose like this. Who are you? My mother? Meaning, people are not open to rebuke anymore. We're in a different generation. We're in a different generation. That's why nowadays, it's the day of iPhone, bis, li, selfie. It's all about the I, right? Everything is about me. So even the rebuke has to be, self-care, self-help. Everything's about me. That was a rebuke. Now you have to rebuke yourself.
AI.
Yeah. Meaning what? That this came now the generation that who rebukes who? Rebuke yourself. We're in a generation that nobody can be told nothing. Nobody can tell me nothing, right? It's cancel culture. You tell me I'm wrong, I cancel you. So what happened to rebuke?
Block it.
We're in the point of what? You have to rebuke yourself. You have to say, well, what's going on with my tzniut? What's going on with my Yiddishkeit? What's going on with my derech eretz? What's going on with my Torah? What's going on with my teshuvah? You have to rebuke yourself. It's a different generation. The art of the rebuke has transferred into self-rebuke. You have to be very, very careful on how you rebuke people, because nowadays they don't accept it the way that they used to. Back in the days, it used to be that a good friend or a rabbi or somebody in the community tells you, hey, my friend, what are you doing? There's no talking in shul. Or you tell them, hey, what are you doing? That's not the way to act. That's not the way to behave. That's not the way you be with your son. It would be, thank you very much for waking me up. Well, I have to be a little bit careful. I have to work on myself. Thank you. Nowadays it's no. And then be fighting words. Who are you to tell me? So since we live in a generation where there's a lot of resistance and a lot of ego, it's up to you to do the self-rebuke. That's why when a person is darshaning in front of people, he has to be careful on who's in front of. And if he's a big tzaddik, he has to look around and say, I know I prepared a class, but if I say this, what about that person? If I say that, what about that person? For sure it's going to hurt that person. I can tell that what I'm about to say is going to hurt that feeling. You have to be very, very careful. There's a story of a rabbi. I think it's a story from Hasidut. There's a guy that wanted to marry off his daughter. He says, I want the best student of your yeshiva. He went to a big yeshiva, and they told him that this is the guy. He brings him back home. He says to his daughter, this is your new husband, Talmid Chacham, the top of the top. He takes him to shul to show him off. And he says he's very famous to be knowing everything by heart. He's a darshan, top darshan. He knows how to give good lectures. And they come into the shul, and the rabbi gives a drasha, and then he invited him to add on to give an additional drasha for Shabbat. He goes up, and he literally bombs. Everybody's looking around. He's saying, what is this? This is the big learned the tzaddik. This is the guy that knows how to speak. This is the number one student from the yeshiva. His father-in-law was very embarrassed by it. When they finish shul, he comes back. He says, "Why'd you do that?" He said, "Why'd you do that? I know. I heard you speak. You speak better than that. Why didn't you give a good drasha?" You know what he said? He said, "If I would have given a good drasha, the rabbi would have been embarrassed." So what did he do? It's better that he looked bad than another Jew. Yeah. How careful we have to be. Even more so when it comes to a parent. I just want to add this because it's always good to speak about the family. Know that approach, that when a person sees his children doing something wrong, or he doesn't act in the proper way, not a derech eretz, it's not good to rebuke him with anger. And definitely not to rebuke him with anger in front of people and to embarrass him in front of people. Because sometimes we feel comfortable around, the grandmother is around, the aunts are around, and you tell off your kid in front of them. They're embarrassed, they don't want to be embarrassed in front of their savta or their dod. So you have to be very, very careful. He says, why? Because at that time, even more so, he's going to resist it. No problem. At that moment, he's going to be quiet. Why? Because the parents told him, and there's family, so he's going to be quiet, but he's going to harbor that feeling inside of his heart, and he's not going to do anything. He's just going to be quiet now, but he'll get his revenge later. When? You might have power over him when he's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. But the minute he gets to be 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, he's coming for you. He's not going to, it's going to be a boomerang. He says, לא יוכיחו בכעס ולא לפני אנשים ולא ילבין את פניו חס ושלום right? Don't do it with anger, not in front of people, and not to embarrass him in front of other people, because for sure the rebuke will not be accepted. Va'adraba, and even more so, tigrom lo rechuk. It'll cause him distance. He'll go far, far away from you. Abba and the child, distance. Imagine, that's supposed to be the closest relationship in the house. The parents and the children. But those things create a wall, a barrier. Consciously, subconsciously, that eventually when they get older, what happens? The resentment creeps up from their subconscious, and all of a sudden, they go off the derech. Why? Because you didn't know how to handle them in the younger years. You yelled at them, you embarrassed them, you did a tochacha in the wrong way. Where do we learn this also, by the way? Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, you know, the Reuven, what did Reuven do? Reuven, you know that he took the bed of Yaakov Avinu from the ohel of Bilhah, who was the servant of Rachel, and he put it in the ohel of Leah, his mother. And this angered Yaakov, because his son shouldn't decide where his father sleeps. He can decide who he wants to be with. But nevertheless, he didn't say a word. He treated him just like the other 12 kids the entire time. Because right after that event, it says over there, Vayishma Yisrael v'yu bnei Yaakov shnem asar. His children were 12, meaning he was considered still one of the 12. You know what he waited for? He waited until his deathbed. Only until he get to the point that Reuven is going to listen to his words and internalize them. That's when he told him, hey, you know what you did with Bilhah? You acted too fast. You made a decision that wasn't right. And the reason why, by the way, he also waited for that, because that was the right moment at the right time. He was going to say the right words at the right time. When a person passes away, what do? What, Abba? Tell me. Whatever you say, I'll keep. Whatever you say, I'll listen. That was the right moment. If he would have done it years before when he sinned, he says he was scared that Reuven would go where? To his evil uncle Esav. Why? Because they said that the Bechor is shoteh. The Bechor is they're a little bit crazy. They have they're very sporadic in their actions. So what happens? He says he might lose it, that his father embarrassed him or yelled at him or gave him the wrong rebuke, and he'll go to Esav and learn his ways and marry his daughters. So what do you say? Stay quiet. He stayed quiet until it was the right time. Similarly with children. When the time comes to rebuke them, you know what you do? It's very hard. Especially for Sephardics. We're so knee-jerk reaction, right away got to say what you got to say, right? But in reality, you have to wait for the right moment. You know, he's sitting on your lap. Abba, I love you too, but I want to tell you something. Remember 2 weeks ago? When you did this and you did that? It wasn't nice. And that's it. And that's the moment. That's the moment, and that's the way to do it. It's hard to do it because in the moment, you just want justice exacted now, so the kid gets it, and you don't have to deal with that moment. Because why is it the entire time when the thing is going wrong, you're boiling in your stew? You're like, oh my God, look at that! Everything right now is angering me. This is not what I want to be. I want it to be a different reality right now. Wait. When? Tomorrow, or next week, next month. If you don't want to damage that soul, if you don't want to damage that person, if you don't want to push him away, you wait for the right time, at the right place, and the right words. Katzar v'kolea. Very, very short. That's the art of rebuke from Moshe Rabbeinu. Furthermore, I just want to say one last thing before we
start the class.
Before we end the class. It says, Chazal tell us, Tzarich, it says this in Masechet Shabbat. Masechet Shabbat and Masechet Gitin. Shadam רוצה לבקש מיני ביתו שעשו דבר מה? If you want the people of your household to do anything, צריך למימנינו בניחותא כי הכי דקיבינו מיניה. He says a person has to say it very, very calmly with nice words in order that they accept the request and they will do it. For the people that are married, it says sometimes a person is very angry at his wife because she doesn't do his will. You want her to do a certain thing, and she doesn't listen. By the way, if you're a woman, just substitute this to husband, okay? So sometimes the woman doesn't honor her husband the way that he'd like to get honored, or sometimes she doesn't do his will. He tells her to do it this way, she does it a different way, and it bothers him. And what he wants to tell her, but I told you that this is not the right way. I told you to use this sponge on Shabbat and using this sponge on Shabbat, right? I told you that you got to use this light switch and that light switch. I told you that to buy this brand and you brought this brand. I told you that I want this clean, I want that clean. Whatever, all these things. The minute you start to go off on the wife, you know what happens? Wall after wall after wall. That's it. Keep going. Keep going. The more you talk, the more the walls go up. Right? And he says, and every word that you say, you're hurting her feelings. And what I know from experience, it's like a nail in a tree. The nail in the tree, it creates a hole in the tree, right? Later on, you come, you say, I'm sorry. That's the hammer that takes out the nail. The nail is out. The hole's still there. Women have the memory of elephants. They never forget. Remember on our wedding night? Remember we were dating? What is? Are you serious? Yes, they're serious. They don't forget. So if you know that already, what do? Close your mouth. Be quiet. You're just hurting yourself. And sometimes, I'm telling you, especially for Sephardics, we have to tell, we have to say, we have to speak our mind. You know? So what happens? It says, Kol milah nosefet tarchik otcha mincha od ve'od. Every word distances her more and more and more and more from you. Sometimes, what do you have to do? You have to wait for the right moment to say the right word at the right time. He says, at one point, she's going to come and she's going to bring up the subject. You're going to say, you know what? I was in Kosher Central and I saw that they had this special sponges for Shabbat. Yeah, you know what? I think those are great. Maybe you should get a few. And that's it. As opposed to tell her, I told you on Shabbat, it's only the sponge. Oh, it's like turning on fire. We're not keeping Shabbat. Meaning, it could be that. Or you could wait, patience, to have that moment where she brings it up, and Hashem will make it. Don't worry. Hashem is not going to let you down. Hashem will make it where she brings up the subject, you say a couple of words on it, and you move on. And then you'll be successful. In conclusion, Moshe Rabbeinu is the master of saying the right words at the right time with very little wording. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to throw this in there. Moshe Rabbeinu was also reincarnated several times. And it's so interesting because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't get everything out on this Sefer Devarim. He also had to wait. There's certain things that he couldn't say fully in Sefer Devarim. He still needed patience. He had to come back again and again to get the things that he wanted to say to the Jewish people. Moshe Rabbeinu hochiach et Am Yisrael b'Sefer Devarim. In the Haftarah, we have the Tochacha of Yeshaya Navi, the prophet Yeshaya, who's the Gilgul of Moshe. And then later on, when we read Echa in Tisha B'Av, when we see the Tochacha of Yirmiyah, who is also the Gilgul of Moshe. So this week, we're going to get the Tochacha, the rebuke from Moshe, 3 times. Sefer Devarim, the reincarnation. Sefer Devarim, it's Moshe's rebuke of the Jewish people. Yeshaya Navi, he's the reincarnation of Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's going to be the Haftarah that we read. And then later on in Echa, we're going to have the rebuke of Yirmiyah, who's also the reincarnation of Moshe Rabbeinu. So you see that Moshe Rabbeinu waited for a different lifetime in order to give the right rebuke. In the month of Av, we are indirectly being rebuked by Moshe Rabbeinu in Sefer Devarim, in the book of Echa, in the time of Ben HaMetzarim Tisha B'Av. It's a rebuke after rebuke after rebuke. The whole point here is is this going to be something that wakes you up to change? Because we can't accept each other telling us rebuke anymore. It's a tough art. The art of the rebuke is a lost art. However, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts in your ears divrei Torah and things that you have to learn and grow from, are you rebuking yourself? Are you telling yourself it's time to get better? It's time to become a better version of myself. I have to increase my level of spirituality. I have to get better at what I'm doing. I have to do a proper teshuvah. Like we said in the year Tafshin Pei Dalet, when everything's about the iPhone, the Beastly, the selfie, the AI, all these things, it's all about the self. No one wants to be told nothing. The self-rebuke is the nutochacha. The self-rebuke is the nutochacha. Hashem is going to put that Torah in your ear and make sure you apply it. Because if somebody else tells you, you're just going to resist it. So tell it to yourself. Tell it to yourself. Self-help, self-growth, self-care. It's ironic in all those three places, in Parashat Bamidbar, in Echa, and in the Haftarah, we're going to see the word Echa, 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 Echa. 3 times we're going to say Echa. Last night I wanted to mention it, but Yosef, Baruch Hashem, at the end of the class mentioned it for me. Echa can also be read as Ayeka. Where are you? The Torah is going to ask you 3 times this week. Ayeka, where are you? Where are you? Where are you holding? And not only where are you holding, what are you doing to correct yourself? Where's your self-rebuke? Where's your personal tikkun that will lead to the tikkun haklali? Meaning when you work on yourself, that's when we all become rectified. In the month of Av, we need to be rebuked. We need to be pushed. We need to be nudged. We need to be reminded of the task at hand, which is the tikkun of the re'iyah, the tikkun of the shmi'ah, and to do a proper teshuvah. Because we said Av is Elul Ba. And now that Elul is coming, you have to push yourself to do a proper teshuvah process, because without teshuvah process, a proper teshuvah process, there's no real closeness to God. Hashem barech otchem, yisameach otchem. Thank you for coming. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll see you guys on Thursday on the 13 attributes class. And next week on Monday is Tisha B'Av. I'm not sure if we're going to cancel the class or postpone it. I'll keep you posted. Kol Tov.